Good morning, y'all. Welcome to my garden. In this video, I'm showing you the bad and the ugly. In the past 4 days, we've had more than 20 inches of rain, and in Southwest Florida, that means weeds. I don't know about you guys, but we've been pretty dry lately, and we've been praying for the rain. We didn't expect to get it all at one time. This front bed is not so bad because it was one of the last ones that I worked on before I shut the garden down. We don't have a winter here, so the summer is my time to kick back, relax a little bit, and just go into maintenance mode. My garden is a wildlife habitat, so I try not to use anything toxic that's going to harm any of my little bunnies. I've got a few snakes that live here, toads, different things that come through on a regular basis, and I love seeing them. I definitely don't want to hurt my pollinators. So you'll notice that I've got a couple of rock paths here and there. Those always get weeds that come up, and I do use a Nutria organic spray for those things to kind of keep those in check. The majority of my weeds happen to be grass weeds that pop up through the mulch. There's absolutely nothing that I can do to stop it. I hand pull all of those because it's just impossible to come in with any kind of tool to get them out once I've mulched the beds, and the roots of my plants tend to get tangled and very thick, so I can't really come in without damaging the plants. So those all get pulled by hand. You'll notice my do not trim signs around the yard. Those are because my HOA takes care of our lawn cutting, and the service comes through and they've got their handy hedge trimmers, and they just whack everything down to about 2 or 3 feet on everybody's property. I don't want that happening, so I have to put signs out to remind them not to cut my plants. As we move into this little corner, it's a section of the garden that I really haven't decided what I want to do with it yet. I tend to drop a couple of annuals in here, the coleus, the supertunias. I do have a couple of drift roses in here that I keep all the time, but I like to play around with this spot until I can really figure it out. It's right on the northwest corner of my house, so it gets blasted with sun all the time. One of my favorite things to do is to take a sweet potato vine and grow it up a trellis or an arbor. This one's been hanging out here for about 3 years. It's been blown down by Hurricane Ian and a couple of other strong windstorms that have come through. My mulberry is one of my favorite things. I love it when it leaves out in the spring because it shields my window from some of the heat that comes through. The weeds here aren't so bad, but they are there if you look really close. Up in the top of this tree, I have a Vanda that I had to save because I had a virus going through all of my orchids on my lanai. This one I decided that I would take it and stick it outside just to give it a chance to get away from the sickness that was working its way through all of my others. I have unfortunately lost over 120 orchids thanks to this virus. And this guy has been blooming and blooming and blooming. I think I'm getting about 3 blooms a year out of it now. There's a much closer shot. It is fragrant, so when I am walking around in here, I get to really enjoy the perfume from this orchid. The birds you're hearing have a nest inside the Arizona cypress. They are not happy about me being here. It's almost depressing to walk around my garden this time of year. I expect it to look really bad, but I never really expect it to look as bad as it does. Right now, it is horrible. There are so many weeds everywhere. Everything's faded color. The blooms have all fallen. It's just so drab, and I cannot wait until the fall when I can start waking it up again. So as we start to move around, this section was an island bed, but I have somehow connected my entire garden to just be one continuous loop all the way around the house. So I don't know, I guess this is now the peninsula. It is the absolute worst of every section of the garden. This section was all sod, and I extended the beds between the trees that were planted by the builder. Because I did that, the St. Augustine does not ever go away. I don't care what you do. I paid for the landscape company to come through and actually lift all of the sod, scrape it. I put cardboard down, I sprayed it, I did all kinds of things. It still comes back through. So that is what you're seeing in this bed, just a bunch of St. Augustine weeds popping up. Down at the end of this little rock path, I have a tiny little pond. I've got a couple of aquatic plants living in there. I did have a couple of betta fish living in there, and the raccoons decided to come and eat them all. So I'm not going to put any more in there. I'm just going to leave it for the frogs to enjoy, and the birds will be able to get their mosquitoes and things from it. On this corner, I have a live oak tree that was planted by the builder. The roots are pretty aggressive, so it's kind of hard to plant in here. The Lespedeza is the only thing that's really thrived, and that poor thing has gone through hell and back with storms. Still trying to figure out what to do with this corner, but I think I'm going to be digging up most of the plants that are in this little pocket. I lost a podocarpus here. I'll just replace that one and fill it in. The croton will have to move somewhere else. The backside of the peninsula sees much better days the rest of the year. I tend to keep my garden from September till the end of May. May 30th, I try to be done with any new plantings. So if it's not in by then, it's not going in until September. It's just so hot. This section is seen by all of my neighbors. We tend to chat when they're walking their dogs, and it always looks much better than this, guys. I am so sorry about how crazy this looks. The gardenia is in rehab right now. It did give me a surprise the other day and pushed out 4 blooms. I was walking by to take a look at some things in water prior to the rain coming, and I caught a whiff of the most divine smell, and I turned and saw the gardenias. As you keep going around the corner, though, you find a little supertunia surprise that is not all that super. Those are Supertunia Vista Silverberry. I love them. They are gorgeous, and they were the star of the show. I cannot wait to plant more. So here in Southwest Florida, we are victims of red tide and toxic algae blooms. So during the summer, the state asks that we don't do any fertilization of any of our plants so that we don't contribute to those algae growths. So that's another reason that this garden kind of goes to sleep in the summer. I can't come out and hit it with a bunch of fertilizer to keep everything pretty. I try to use only organic fertilizers anyway, so lots of tones, very few inorganic things go into my garden. I started cleaning out the greenhouse a couple weeks back, so there's not a whole lot going on over here. I did have a few beans that were still growing outside the greenhouse, but the rain has caused all kinds of problems over here with diseases, and it's not any point in me fighting with them right now. I think by now everybody can see what my to-do list is as I finish up the summer. Weeding, cleaning, getting everything ready. By mid-September, I will have all of my seeds started and set up in the greenhouse. I will have anything that's going to be direct sown and be ready to go. Right now, it's just gonna be a mess. Did anybody notice that I have 2 juvenile Japanese maples growing in my garden? Both are in containers so that I can move them freely because obviously they don't want to be growing here. But I truly believe if you're going to be a gardener, you got to take some risks. I wanted Japanese maples, and I've had these two for going on 4 years now, and they have put on growth slowly, but they're still healthy and they're still growing. I just repotted both of them, and I'm really excited to see what happens to them as they get older. I tried growing Lysianthus here in this bed for the first time this year. Not bad. I'm looking forward to trying those again. Here you'll see another of my sweet potato vines, this time a red one growing on the corner here of the house. This one has been in for about a year and a half now. Let's squeeze into this path. This one takes us right over to the driveway. In the boxes under the window, I had Supertunia Mini Vista Indigo. Those guys hung on for probably about 4 or 5 months. The humidity here just really takes them. They can't handle the humidity. They do really well as long as you can keep them fed and give them a little bit of shade from the heat. Once that humidity is reaching about 96%, it's just really hard to keep them. My Buddha belly jatropha is in need of a little bit of iron. I need to take a good look at it. It is considered a succulent, so it might just be getting a little bit too much water with this rain that we've had the last few days. Mid fall going into winter is when the front bed looks its absolute best. I am still considering adding a few extra things because I did add some super petunias in here that until recently looked really, really good. They held on most of the year. So I'm kind of thinking of doing that again. I may move a couple of things around, but guys, this is my garden. This is what's going on right now. I told you in the beginning it was going to be raw, it was going to be ugly, but I still love it.